the question becomes, this has been a question I've raised many times from the start of this war, is after what Hamas did on October the 7th, what is morally justifiable in terms of a response by Israel? And I don't have the answer. I'm just curious what you think it is.
So number one, it is not indiscriminate killing of civilians, and that is almost certainly what we had in Gaza. 85% of Gazans are now homeless because 70% of the buildings are either destroyed or damaged. So what they did was one of the biggest war crimes we've ever seen in our life. That is not a proportional response. I've said on your show before, I think they should go in with special forces. You have to get the hostages, and I understand that you've got to go after the Hamas fighters, okay? And that is fair. If you attack from your territory, you should expect special forces back. Special forces work. They worked in the case of bin Laden, and oftentimes they worked in the case of ISIS. We did not do giant bombings of Iraq, Syria, etc. We had plenty of war crimes on our hands too, as America executed the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but nothing on the scale of what Israel has done. To give you a sense of it, we killed less civilians in 20 years in Afghanistan than Israel killed in 2 months in Gaza. So they dropped 29,000 bombs in a city the size of Las Vegas. The sheer terror of that is indescribable. So you send in special forces, you do something. But most importantly, this goes to your question about how is it different than ISIS and how to resolve it. ISIS doesn't represent anyone. ISIS doesn't represent an ethnic group. They claim they represent a religious group, but they're radicals and they don't represent Muslims at all in general, right? But Hamas is fighting a war because of the occupation. And the occupation of the Palestinians is untenable. So every day that you have an occupation, you're going to have a resistance.
And it's undeniable that there's been an occupation.
Yeah.
And we know that because when this latest war started, the fact that Israel was able to turn on the taps of energy and water, fuel and so on, the fact they could do that, stop the food coming in and out, that is what an occupation involves. It means you control somewhere, which is not legally yours to control, and you're controlling it. So I don't think you can argue, whoever side you come down on this, you can't argue against the idea that there's been occupation, nor can you argue that a lot of the more right-wing members of Netanyahu's cabinet, some of whom are extreme, far-right people, that they have no concern about what is happening and would be quite happy to see all 2 million Palestinians gone. And they would love to just take that land. Now, that's also undeniable, which is one of the reasons why Netanyahu has dug himself into a very difficult position politically, I think, for his own future, by packing this cabinet with all these hard right people purely to get himself elected prime minister again. He now finds himself under their control.